This is the Nerf Pro Sender. Is this the new version of the Nerf Elite Raven, or does it need more time in the workshop? Let's find out. Now, a couple things before we start this review. Nerf did send me out this unit to take a look at. I was also one of the first few people outside of the Nerf or Hasbro employee community that was able to get their hands on the Nerf Pro Sender in Rhode Island. At the time, I was really impressed with both the Sender and the Torrent. When I think back to my time at Hasbro headquarters, I was really impressed with the Sender as well as the Torrent. Great entry into the Nerf Pro line, but this is the production unit. This is the one that people were taking off shelves and seeing what it's all about. Because I'm getting to this review a little later than most, one thing has been abundantly clear: that some people are having issues with some of the wheel alignment on their Sender. There are just some issues with it. So as we get into this box, as we take a look at it, that is one thing I'm going to be keeping my eye on. But speaking of the box, what do we get inside? Of course, we get some eye protection. This is Nerf Pro after all. You're going to want eye protection for any of these blasters. We get one of these Nerf Pro magazines, and if you have any sort of angled talons, it's roughly the same thing. I will say this does feel pretty solid. It feels good, and there is a lot of plastic here at the bottom, so if this drops to the ground, it will absorb some impact. Now, the other thing, of course, we're going to be getting some Nerf Pro darts. These are the redesigned Pro darts. Because this is a flywheel blaster, a lot of comparisons are going to be drawn with the Nerf Pro Strife X. One thing to note, though, is that these are going to work for both the Torrent as well as the Sender. The closest thing to these, I would say, is the Worker Gen 3 darts, which are just offset a little bit, which makes it safe for both spring-powered blasters as well as flywheels. Because you're not going to have that rubber creating a stopper inside of a spring-powered blaster, and with the higher crush on the flywheels, the dart will be able to get by a lot quicker. Last but certainly not least, we get the Nerf Pro Sender in the box. And here it is, bullpup style. What's nice about it is it makes it quite a bit more compact. We have higher speeds on these wheels. You want a certain distance away from the flywheel so that if you have to clear a jam or something like that, your fingers aren't getting near where things are spinning too quickly. So the bullpup style not only looks cool, makes the blaster a little more compact, it also provides us the opportunity to be a little safer. Awesome. And just like the Nerf Pro Torrent, if this just feels a little too tiny for you, if you feel like you're really kind of pushing this back and your arms are feeling like a little bit dinosaur-y, you can pull off this back piece. It's just friction fit on. I almost dropped it, but got quick hands today. And you can see that it's just a typical Nerf N-Strike stock attachment point, which is really nice. It allows some flexibility with play. If you don't want just a random hunk of plastic protruding out the back, you can finish it off nicely. That is just a nice looking blaster. I know some people don't like the Nerf Pro look. I happen to be of the opposite opinion. I really like the more space-agey, the more, I guess, Borderlands, Hyperion feel to these blasters, as well as retaining a lot of other similar Nerf designs, including the orange, some of this matte as well as glossy plastic that kind of reminds me of the Nerf Elite 1.5 line, things like the Trilogy and the Hyperfire, stuff like that. The full retail price of this is about $50. People have been finding this on sale since it's been out on store shelves, and it also needs 8 AA batteries in addition to power the flywheels. But I've got 2 darts loaded in this thing. Let's give it its initial test run, and I want to see how well the Sender performs. Ready? Here we go. That was not encouraging. Here's what I noticed immediately. Now, for starters, I feel like I gave the flywheels ample time to spin up. When I squeezed the trigger and I let the darts through the system and they left the barrel, it started fishtailing like this. That was not a normal flight pattern I would expect from a pro level dart. I think what I'm gonna have to do is test this blaster a lot more thoroughly and also compare it against some other half-length dart blasters, because I'm trying to remember if that is something that I've seen before or if this is something unique to the Nerf Pro Sender. Initial impressions, it was speedy, but the darts were flying so weird. As I was firing darts through the magazines, and I used both the magazine from the Sender as well as the Nerf Pro Torrent because they are the same, the darts predictably went unpredictable. And that might sound like a bit of a contradiction, but ultimately what was happening is that the darts continued to fishtail, except when I was going a little more quickly with the trigger squeezes. What was happening when I wasn't giving the motors enough time to rev back up to full speed, it felt like those darts were a little more accurate. I wouldn't say that they were great, but the stuff at the higher speeds, the higher motor rev, were the most unpredictable. Ultimately, that left me confused because we have something that says Nerf Pro on it, and it just wasn't working as intended. And here's the thing, when I was comparing this to other blasters like the Maxim Pro or even the Omnia Pro, which has its own issues, those were firing more accurately than the Nerf Pro Sender was. The thing about the Nerf Pro Sender that I have in my hands today is not the same Nerf Pro Sender that I remember using back in Rhode Island. Because that trip wasn't too long ago, I remember that one feeling like it was going a little more accurate than this one here. So you remember the little discussion we had on the flywheels and the crush between them? It feels like something in production happened where the wheels aren't spinning at the exact same speed at higher RPMs, or what's happening is the wheels are slightly misaligned, but when I was checking it out down the barrel, it didn't feel like that one was the case. So I really like the Nerf Pro Torrent, but the Nerf Pro Sender feels like a different blaster than the one that I used in Rhode Island, whereas the Torrent felt relatively the same. I'm not quite sure what happened here, and it feels like there is a good blaster in here, but comparing it to the other pro-level flywheel blaster, the Nerf Pro Strife X, clear that there is a winner, even though this one is at least half the cost, maybe even a fourth of the cost of the Nerf Pro Strife X, depending if you get this on sale or not. There's some great ideas here. I love the design. I love the hidden stock attachment point. I love the bullpup style. It feels very Raven-esque. But when it comes to the actual performance and using this and feeling like it's a fun blaster, the Nerf Pro Torrent from this very same line feels like the better option. Even though it's not directly comparing apples to apples because that one was a Springer, this one is a flywheel. I'm really not quite sure what to think on the Nerf Pro Sender other than that, get this on a really good deal. I think there are some good ideas here. It just feels like something happened at the factory and that when I'm firing this blaster and comparing it to not only stuff in the Nerf Pro line, but as well as competitors, it just doesn't stack up as well. And knowing that I held a version of the Nerf Pro Sender that was more reliable than this one is furthering the mystery. So to recap everything, a couple things that I really like about the Nerf Pro Sender is the design, as well as the hidden stock attachment point. I also like the fact that it's using, essentially, angled Talon magazines, making it operable across different accessories you might already own, because Pro Blasters are becoming more of a commonplace in people's collections. And the other thing I like is that it seems like you can find this blaster on a good deal. Now, the things that I didn't like about this blaster was the wild inconsistency when it came to firing darts out of this thing. The primary task that the Nerf Pro Sender has to do is fire darts at pro-level speeds and a predictable-ish accuracy level. What we get with the Nerf Pro Sender is something that sends the darts in a corkscrew pattern, fishtailing, squibbing out, and making this a very chaotic blaster to try to dial in. If you're not getting this blaster on a super deal, this is probably a safe one to skip. And if you want a Nerf Pro blaster, I would definitely recommend the Nerf Pro Strife X if you have the budget for it, or if you want to get something similar but not flywheel based, the Nerf Torrent is out there. I hope that this blaster gets revisited because I like the shape, I like the style, I like how it all just kind of looks. So it's a cool piece to have to my collection, but it's not something that I'm going to be using to play in a game. And if you want to know about some blasters that I would like to play with in games or other blasters that I feel are more accurate or a more predictable style blaster, I talk a lot about blasters. I also talk a lot about action toys in general. So we have 6-inch scale figures, pop culture retro toys, all kinds of cool stuff like that. And if you think that stuff is really cool too, you're right at home here. So that's all I know about the Nerf Pro Sender. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.